Every evening it came to their window silently asking for help they didn't know how to give, until one day they found a way. Would they dare open their hearts to a wild creature in need? The evening air in the small mountain village was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Smoke curled lazily from the cabin's stone chimney, mixing with the fading light of dusk. Inside, the Patel family, Ravi, his wife Anya, and their young daughter Mira, were finishing their simple supper. The clatter of dishes and the warmth of the fire made the cabin feel safe, cozy, and ordinary. Yet, as Mira peered out the window toward the treeline, something unusual caught her eye, a large shape standing still in the shadow of the trees. At first she thought it was a deer or a wandering dog, but the form shifted, hunched, and deliberate. Her breath hitched. "Papa, there's something out there," she whispered, pressing her small hands against the cold glass. Ravi came over, wiping his hands on his apron. He squinted into the dimming light, then froze. There, not 10 paces from the cabin, was a bear. Its fur was matted in places, streaked with mud, and its eyes, curious, watchful, almost human, fixed on the warm glow of the window. It didn't make a sound, didn't move toward the cabin aggressively. It simply stood there, staring. Anya gasped, instinctively stepping back. "Ravi, what do we do?" Ravi held up a hand. "Stay calm, don't make sudden movements." His voice was steady, though his pulse had quickened. He had grown up near these mountains, and while encounters with wildlife were not uncommon, a bear approaching a home so deliberately was unusual. Mira's fascination overtook her fear. "It's looking at us," she said softly. I think it's asking something." Ravi frowned. "Asking?" he repeated. "Mira, it's a bear. Bears don't." But before he could finish, the bear took a small, careful step back into the shadows, then returned to its original spot. It was almost as if it were waiting. Mira pressed her forehead to the window. "Papa, I think it's hungry." Ravi exchanged a glance with Anya. Their logical minds wrestled with instinctive fear. Feeding a wild bear was dangerous. Yet, the bear's posture, the way it avoided rushing toward them, suggested desperation rather than aggression. For the next few nights, the bear returned. Every evening, it appeared at the edge of the trees, just outside the cabin's light. Sometimes it lingered for minutes, sometimes longer, but it never attacked, never demanded, it simply watched. The family began to notice small details, its ribs visible beneath the scraggly coat, a limp in its left hind leg, claw marks etched across its snout. This was not a bear thriving in the wilderness, it was struggling to survive. Ravi could no longer see it as a threat, he saw a creature in need. Mira, eager and compassionate, whispered to her parents one night, "Can we help it? Just a little?" Anya hesitated. "We have to be careful. It's still wild. But maybe we can do something small. Something safe." The first attempt was simple. They placed a dish of leftover fruits, apples, berries, and bits of bread, near the edge of the clearing. Then they watched from inside. The bear approached slowly, sniffed the offerings, and began eating. It paused often, its gaze lifting to the cabin as if aware of their watchful eyes. It was the first moment of trust. A silent acknowledgement passed between the human family and the bear. Neither would harm the other tonight. As days passed, the bear's visits became routine. The family adapted their evening rituals around it, quietly preparing food, keeping the cabin calm, observing from the safety of the warm interior. Mira began leaving little notes of encouragement written on scraps of paper, simple sketches of a bear with a heart, placed near the dish. Her father shook his head with a smile, quietly admiring her innocence and empathy. Yet, for all this progress, an undercurrent of tension remained. The villagers were not aware of the bear's visits, and the natural order of the forest was unpredictable. One evening, as the bear approached the cabin, a low growl echoed from deeper in the trees. The bear stiffened, its ears swiveling, muscles tensing. Mira clutched the window frame. Ravi whispered, "Something's coming?" The bear didn't move. It stayed between the approaching danger and the cabin, growling softly now in response to the distant sound. It was a protective gesture, instinctive yet deliberate, almost purposeful. The family realized with a mix of awe and fear that this wild creature had chosen to safeguard them, even without knowing them. And in that moment, a question formed in Mira's mind, and in the audience's too. If a wild bear can choose to protect, what does that say about our own choices toward those weaker than us? Would you have left the bear in the clearing or risked feeding it to build trust? What would you do in its place? As the growl echoed through the forest, the bear's stance shifted. It was no longer just a visitor, it was guarding something, or someone, was coming, and the safety of the cabin now depended on the bear's next move. The night air had grown heavier, the forest around the cabin thick with silence, broken only by the distant low growl that had sent shivers down Mira's spine. The bear, standing near the edge of the clearing, shifted its weight, muscles taut and eyes glinting in the warm cabin light. Its protective stance was unmistakable, instinctual yet deliberate. Inside, Ravi motioned for silence, his fingers pressed to his lips. Anya pulled Mira closer, whispering, "Stay calm, stay quiet, whatever's out there, it hasn't come for us yet." The girl's wide eyes met the bear's gaze. There was a strange understanding between them, an unspoken bond forming over shared trust. Suddenly, a rustle to the left of the clearing caught everyone's attention. Leaves crunched under unseen feet, and the shadow of a figure moved just beyond the line of the firelight. The bear growled again, low and warning. It was not aggression, it was vigilance. It was a guardian in the wild. Ravi's heart pounded. He had heard stories from other villagers about bears turning aggressive when humans came too close, but this was different. This bear wasn't demanding, they were sharing space, negotiating territory silently. From inside, Mira whispered, "Papa, it's protecting us." Ravi nodded, but his mind raced. Who, or what, was approaching? He quietly grabbed a lantern and peeked through the window, trying to see past the shadows. A lone wolf, its coat dark against the forest floor, emerged from the underbrush. Its eyes glimmered in the lantern light as it prowled toward the cabin. It wasn't hunting the family, it was hunting the smaller creatures that usually wandered near the edge of human settlements. Yet in the bear's eyes, Ravi saw determination. The bear stepped forward, placing itself between the wolf and the cabin. Its growl deepened, echoing through the trees, a warning that could not be ignored. The wolf paused, evaluating the bear, weighing the risk. For minutes that felt like hours, the two animals studied each other. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and moss, and the wolf finally retreated into the shadows. Inside, Ravi exhaled, relief washing over him, but Mira was already gazing at the bear with awe. "Did you see that? It saved us." Anya nodded slowly, her hands pressed together. "It didn't have to. It could have just eaten the food and left, but it stayed. It watched. It cared." The next day, Ravi and Anya made their way into the forest clearing, cautiously leaving food for the bear again. They noticed something they hadn't seen before, tracks from its injured left hind leg, deeper than usual in the soft soil, suggesting days of struggle and difficulty in moving. It wasn't just hunger that had driven the bear to their cabin. It was necessity, survival, and the instinct to protect. Over the following week, the bear's visits became even more regular. Mira began leaving small gestures, a ribbon tied to a branch near its feeding spot, a tiny wooden bowl painted with bright colors. The family found joy in these simple acts of connection, understanding that trust was a language without words. But with trust came responsibility. One morning, Ravi overheard murmurs from the village, concerned neighbors who had noticed the bear near the cabin. Fear, superstition, and tales of human bear encounters began to circulate. The family's secret, their growing bond, was no longer theirs alone. Ravi looked out the window that night as the bear appeared at the edge of the clearing, its eyes scanning the treeline. He whispered to Anya, "We've taught it trust, but if the villagers come too close, that trust could be tested." And as the cabin lights flickered against the approaching darkness, Mira asked quietly, "Papa, will it still come if people find out?" The wind carried a subtle rustle, almost as if the bear had heard her question. Its eyes held something almost human, an understanding that their world was fragile, that coexistence required careful steps. As the wind rustled the trees again, Ravi noticed movement at the far edge of the clearing, not a wolf this time, something larger, more deliberate. The bear stiffened, low growl rumbling in its chest, ready to defend. The family's secret visitor was about to face a threat far greater than hunger, and the safety of their cabin hung in the balance. The wind through the trees carried a strange tension that evening, a stillness that made even the falling leaves seem hesitant. Ravi, Anya, and Mira watched from the cabin window as the bear shifted its massive shoulders, facing a shadow moving deliberately at the far edge of the clearing. Its low, rumbling growl reverberated through the air, a warning and a declaration all at once. Ravi's pulse quickened. He had never seen the bear act so purposefully, as if it understood that the cabin, and by extension his family, was now under potential threat. Mira's small hand pressed against his arm, her eyes wide but unblinking. "It's protecting us, isn't it?" she whispered. "Yes," Ravi said quietly. "But something tells me this isn't just a random animal." From the shadows emerged not one, but two wolves, larger than any the family had seen before, their eyes glowing in the cabin's faint light. They moved with predatory precision, circling the clearing, pausing to assess the bear. It was a standoff, one that required neither human nor wolf intervention yet demanded the bear's full attention. The bear's stance shifted subtly, each step measured, showing both caution and strength. It had been hungry, tired, and injured, but now it had a purpose beyond itself. Every muscle, every sinew of its body communicated vigilance and authority. Ravi felt a mix of awe and fear. The creature they had been quietly nurturing was not just a visitor, it was a protector, a silent guardian of the fragile peace they had come to share. Mira's curiosity and concern battled with her fear. "Papa, do you think it can handle them?" she asked softly. Ravi's eyes never left the bear. "It's doing what it has to. Trust it." The wolves prowled closer, pausing as the bear let out a deep, resonant growl. It was a sound that carried through the forest, both a warning and a challenge. The wolves hesitated, evaluating the risk. Every second stretched, the tension almost unbearable. The family held their collective breath, knowing that one misstep could shatter the delicate balance of this night. Suddenly, one wolf lunged toward the bear, quick and aggressive. The bear responded immediately, sidestepping and standing its ground, its sheer size and power dominating the smaller predators. The wolves circled, testing, pushing boundaries, but the bear's resolve never wavered. In a series of precise, forceful movements, it drove them back, not with malice but with controlled assertion. Inside the cabin, Anya placed her hands over her mouth. "It's incredible," she whispered. "It's not just protecting us, it's teaching them boundaries." Hours seemed to pass in those tense moments. Finally, the wolves, realizing the bear would not relent, melted back into the darkness of the forest. The clearing returned to stillness, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the bear's heavy, careful breathing. Mira exhaled slowly, her gaze locked on the bear. "It's amazing. We've never met anything like it. Different. Special." Ravi nodded. "Different, yes. But not invincible. That's why we have to respect it. Every visit, every meal, it's still wild, still vulnerable. And still choosing to trust us." Over the following nights, the bear continued its visits, always cautious, always measured. The family began to notice subtler things. Small scars healing, its fur gradually less matted, the limp in its hind leg easing. The bear was growing stronger not because of human intervention alone, but because it had a safe space to rest and recover. Through these interactions, the family learned an essential truth. Coexistence is built on respect, observation, and trust, not force or fear. They learned patience, empathy, and humility, qualities that mirrored the bear's own careful decisions every night. Yet, despite the growing bond and mutual respect, a shadow lingered. Word of the bear's visits could not stay hidden forever, and the village was not always kind to wild intruders. The family realized that their harmony was fragile, built delicately atop the raw unpredictability of the forest. If you witnessed a wild animal protecting your home, would you step in to intervene, or let nature take its course? How far would you trust another species? As the wolves disappeared into the shadows, a different movement stirred deeper in the forest. Something larger, slower, deliberate. The bear's ears twitched, muscles tensing again. The family held their breath, realizing that the forest had more challenges in store, and the bear's loyalty and courage would soon be tested in ways they had never imagined. The nights were growing colder, and a faint frost began to cling to the edges of the clearing. Inside the cabin, the Patel family prepared their evening meal as usual, but there was a tension in the air that had not been there before. Each of them felt it, though no words could capture the unease. Mira pressed her hands against the window pane, scanning the treeline for the familiar form of their visitor. As always, the bear appeared, its movements deliberate, cautious, but steady. Yet tonight, there was a difference. The limp in its left hind leg had worsened slightly, and there were faint smears of dried blood along its fur. Ravi noticed the signs immediately, a pang of concern tightening his chest. "It must have been hunting, or maybe fighting," Ravi whispered to Anya. "Either way it's hurt." Anya frowned. "Do you think we should?" Ravi shook his head. "No direct contact. Too dangerous. But we can help in small ways. Leave food where it can safely reach it, keep the cabin calm, observe but don't interfere too much. Let it know it's safe without threatening its independence." Mira, wide-eyed, whispered, "I just want to help it." Her voice carried both innocence and determination. She carefully prepared a small portion of leftover meat, placing it near the clearing under the watchful eyes of her parents. They remained inside, silently observing. The bear approached cautiously, sniffing the offering. Its ears flicked back as it scanned the surrounding forest. Something was not right. From the shadowed treeline, movement stirred, smaller than the wolves, quicker, unpredictable. A pack of stray dogs, hungry and aggressive, had wandered close to the clearing. The bear froze, weighing its options. Without hesitation, the bear positioned itself between the food and the intruders. It growled, low and resonant, sending the dogs scattering momentarily, but they returned, circling, snarling, testing the bear's resolve. Mira's heart raced as she watched. This was no longer just a quiet visitor, it was defending not only its food but the cabin and in a way the family itself. Ravi grabbed a lantern but he didn't step outside. Instead he whispered, "It knows what it's doing. Watch and learn." The bear's every movement reflected intelligence honed by instinct and survival. It was powerful but measured, defensive without being reckless. Hours passed in tense standoff. Finally, the dogs, recognizing the futility of challenging the bear, retreated into the dark underbrush. The bear, exhausted but uninjured further, moved to the food and ate slowly, keeping one eye on the shadows at all times. That night, as it returned to the forest, Mira pressed her small hand against the glass. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carried softly into the night. For the first time, the bear paused near the clearing's edge, looking back at the cabin, and Mira could swear its eyes held recognition. It was an acknowledgement of trust, of mutual respect. The family realized something profound. Coexistence was more than feeding or watching. It was about understanding choices, boundaries, and silent communication. The bear was teaching them patience, respect, and humility in ways that no human lesson could match. But their fragile harmony would soon face a new challenge. The forest, unpredictable and untamed, had more in store. That same night, the distant howl of wolves echoed, louder and closer than before. And deeper within the shadows, something larger, heavier, and deliberate began moving toward the clearing. The bear stiffened, muscles coiling like springs, and the family knew instinctively, the safety they had cultivated was about to be tested like never before. The bear's ears twitched as the forest shifted. From the deeper shadows, a pair of glowing eyes emerged, massive and slow-moving. The family's breath caught. Whatever approached next was not ordinary, it was a force the bear would have to face, and the cabin's safety hung on the edge of a knife. The forest held its breath that night. The air was sharp with frost, and the faint glow of the cabin lights barely reached the edge of the clearing. The bear stood rigid, ears pricked forward, muscles coiled, watching the movement deep in the shadows. Whatever approached was deliberate, silent, and undeniably massive. Ravi, Anya, and Mira pressed themselves against the window, hearts pounding. Mira's small fingers traced the outline of the bear's shape in the darkness. "It's bigger than the wolves," she whispered. Ravi nodded grimly. "Yes, and it's not here for play." From the trees emerged a massive male bear, older, scarred, and powerful. Its presence was commanding, almost regal, yet there was tension in its stance. It growled, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the clearing. The younger bear, the one the family had been feeding and observing for weeks, froze momentarily, sizing up the newcomer. This was no ordinary visit. The young bear's protective instincts kicked in immediately. It positioned itself between the older bear and the cabin, eyes locked on the intruder, growl low and warning. For a long moment, the two bears simply stared at each other. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Inside, Mira gasped. "Papa, is it going to fight?" Ravi shook his head slightly. "Not necessarily. Sometimes it's about presence, not aggression. Watch. It's choosing its words with its stance, not its claws." The older bear stepped closer, testing the younger one's resolve. The younger bear stood firm, refusing to back down, yet carefully avoiding any reckless movements. Its previous injuries slowed its reactions slightly, but its intelligence and caution made up for it. Minutes passed in this silent negotiation. The family watched, fascinated and tense, as the younger bear communicated through posture, growls and subtle shifts, teaching them what they had long known instinctively: communication could transcend words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the older bear backed down, retreating slowly into the shadows, leaving the clearing in peace. The younger bear, exhausted but triumphant, turned toward the cabin. Its gaze lingered on the family for a long moment, almost acknowledging them before disappearing into the forest. Inside, Mira let out a soft, relieved sigh. It protected us. Again. Ravi smiled, though worry lingered in his eyes. "Yes, but today we saw more than protection. We saw courage, judgment, and responsibility. This bear isn't just visiting for food, it's making choices. Choices that involve us without ever asking for anything in return. Anya placed her hand gently on Mira's shoulder. And that's the lesson, Mira. Understanding and respect. We've learned to live with it, and in return, it has learned to trust us. Over the following days, the bear's visits continued with renewed calm. Its limp improved, and it began moving more freely around the clearing. The family refined their routines, leaving food in safer, more discreet spots, observing the bear's movements without interfering. A silent harmony settled over the cabin and the forest edge, a fragile but precious balance built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. The experience left the family forever changed. They began to see not only the bear's world but also the lessons of patience, observation, and compassion that applied to their own lives. Fear had transformed into understanding, curiosity into care. And through it all, they realized that true coexistence was possible, even between the wild and humans, if approached with respect and empathy. As the older bear disappeared into the darkness, a new sound drifted through the forest, human voices, unfamiliar and heavy with intent, approaching the cabin. The bear turned its head sharply, ears twitching. The family, unaware of these intruders, would soon learn that the harmony they had built was about to face its most significant test yet. The quiet of the forest that night was fragile, almost fragile enough to shatter at the slightest sound. From the distant tree-line, voices drifted toward the cabin, rough, unfamiliar, and heavy with intent. The bear, standing near the clearing's edge, paused instantly. Its ears twitched, nostrils flaring. It sensed danger, but this threat was not like the wolves or even the older male bear. It was different. Human. Unpredictable. Inside, the family was unaware. Mira had fallen asleep near the window, dreaming of the bear and its quiet courage. Anya was tidying the kitchen and Ravi was stacking firewood. The faint crunch of footsteps against frost-covered leaves was subtle, but the bear noticed. It growled, a low rolling rumble that vibrated through the ground. Its protective instinct had shifted from instinctive to deliberate. The intruders emerged into the clearing, two men carrying rifles, flashlights cutting through the mist. They had heard rumors from other villagers of a bear near the Patel cabin and had come to confirm. Their intentions were uncertain, but the weight of the weapons and the cold glint of their eyes left no room for doubt. This could turn violent. The bear stepped forward immediately, positioning itself between the men and the cabin. Its growl deepened, resonant and commanding. It did not attack recklessly, it did not rush forward. But the weight of its presence, the raw intelligence in its gaze, told the humans in no uncertain terms. This space was not theirs to command. Ravi, finally noticing the flashlight beams through the window, froze. His mind raced. Anya. Mira, stay inside. Don't move. Mira stirred, half awake, sensing the tension. Papa. Oh, what's happening? She whispered. Ravi's eyes never left the bear. It's protecting us, he said softly. But we have to be careful. Don't make sudden movements. The bear and the men engaged in a silent standoff. The humans advanced slightly, testing the bear's reactions. The bear growled louder, teeth bared just enough to warn, but without initiating violence. Its body language, honed by weeks of observation and survival, communicated boundaries clearly. Minutes dragged like hours. The men spoke in low tones, debating what to do, but the bear's unwavering stance made them hesitant. Finally, one of them dropped his rifle slightly, raising his hands in a cautious gesture. The bear remained alert, eyes scanning, muscles coiled, ready to respond, but it did not attack. Its intelligence dictated patience over aggression. Inside the cabin, Mira whispered, "It's teaching them, isn't it?" Ravi nodded. "Yes. Even in threat, it's showing respect without giving up its own boundaries." The intruders, realizing they could not easily provoke the bear, backed away slowly. The younger bear's vigilance never wavered until they disappeared into the trees, leaving the clearing once again in quiet, frost-tipped darkness. The family exhaled collectively. Anya hugged Mira close. "It's incredible," she said. "It risked itself for us and it taught them too." Ravi looked out into the clearing, a mixture of awe and reflection on his face. "It's more than a visitor now. It's a guardian. And we've learned that respect and understanding can prevent conflict, even with those who come with intentions we fear." In the nights that followed, the bear continued its visits, ever watchful but calmer now. Its presence had become a symbol of mutual respect. The family left offerings discreetly, continued to observe without interfering, and allowed the bear to maintain its independence. Yet the memory of the human threat lingered, a reminder that coexistence required vigilance, empathy, and understanding on both sides. The forest was alive, unpredictable, and the bear's trust, though unwavering, reminded the family that harmony was a delicate, ongoing choice. As the intruders vanished, a subtle noise echoed from the deeper forest, branches snapping heavier than any human or wolf could make. The bear's ears perked, nostrils flaring, muscles coiling. Another presence was approaching, one that could change everything the family and their guardian bear had built. The forest held a thick, tense silence as the frost-laced night pressed against the cabin. The bear's posture was taut, every muscle coiled like a spring. Its senses scanned the darkness, nostrils flaring with each gust of cold air. The family inside the cabin huddled together, peering through the window, hearts pounding in rhythm with the bear's own alert movements. A subtle crack of a branch caught the bear's attention. From deeper within the forest, a large shadow emerged, heavier, slower, and deliberate. This was not another wild animal in search of food. The bear's eyes narrowed. Its ears swiveled, catching every nuance of movement. It took a cautious step forward, instinct and intelligence guiding its every action. Ravi whispered to Anya, "It's bigger than before, maybe a bear from another territory. It's assessing the clearing, our visitor, everything." The intruder was immense, a fully grown male, broad shoulders silhouetted against the pale moonlight. Its fur was darker, eyes calculating, and movements methodical. The young bear that had been visiting the cabin squared its shoulders, growling low, a rumbling declaration that this space and those within it were protected. The two bears circled, a tense standoff unfolding in the frost-tipped clearing. Each movement carried meaning, every step, every grunt, every shift in posture was communication. It was not a fight of malice but a negotiation, a test of resolve. The younger bear's muscles were leaner, slightly scarred, but determination and loyalty shone in its gaze. Inside, Mira clutched her mother's sleeve. "Papa, it's going to fight again, isn't it?" Ravi shook his head slowly. "Not necessarily. Watch carefully. Sometimes courage isn't about aggression but presence. The bear is showing the intruder it will defend, but without reckless action. That's wisdom." The larger bear lunged, a warning swipe to assert dominance. The younger bear sidestepped, responding with measured growls, keeping the intruder at bay. Minutes stretched into tense hours as the dance continued, neither bear willing to leave the clearing, neither willing to escalate into violence unnecessarily. Finally, the intruder took one last step, paused and retreated into the shadows, its purpose unfulfilled. The young bear exhaled, a heavy, slow breath, and turned toward the cabin. It lingered at the edge of the clearing, looking toward the warm light spilling from the windows. Its stance softened slightly, a silent acknowledgement that its vigilance had succeeded. Mira pressed her small hand against the glass. It did it again. It saved us, all of us." Anya smiled softly, brushing Mira's hair back. "And that's the lesson, sweetheart. True courage isn't just about strength, it's about understanding boundaries, patience, and protecting those who cannot defend themselves." Ravi nodded, reflecting on the lessons he had learned from this creature. Fear had transformed into respect, suspicion into trust, hunger into understanding. The bear had become not only a protector, but a teacher, silently demonstrating what coexistence could look like. That night, the family left small offerings near the clearing, fruit, bread, and a few scraps of meat, carefully arranged so the bear could feed without venturing too close to human spaces. The gesture was reciprocated with trust. The bear, leaner, stronger, and more confident, accepted the offerings and retreated to its usual spot in the forest, watching over the cabin until it was safe to disappear into the darkness. As the intruder retreated, a faint rustle echoed again, this time from behind the cabin where shadows deepened unnaturally. The bear froze, ears swiveling. The family's breath caught in their throats. Something, or someone, was approaching silently, and this time the danger might not be from the forest alone. The night was thick and silent, the frost-crisped air pressing against the cabin walls. The bear, alert and vigilant, shifted near the edge of the clearing. Its gaze was fixed on a shadow moving closer behind the cabin, subtle but deliberate. This was not the familiar wildlife of the forest. The movement was cautious, human-like. Inside, Ravi, Anya, and Mira huddled by the window, listening intently. The soft crunch of footsteps in frost-covered undergrowth was almost imperceptible, but Mira's sharp ears caught it immediately. "Papa, someone's coming," she whispered. Ravi held her close, trying to steady her breathing. "Stay calm. The bear knows," he said quietly. "It's protecting us." The shadow moved closer, revealing two men from the village, local hunters who had heard rumors of a bear near the cabin. They carried rifles, unaware of the delicate balance that had developed between the family and their silent guardian. Their flashlights cut across the frost, illuminating the clearing as the bear shifted to block their path, low growl vibrating through the trees. The bear did not charge. It did not attack. But its presence was undeniable, commanding. Every hair on its massive frame stood on end, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the humans. The standoff was silent yet charged with meaning. The humans hesitated, sensing instinctively that this was no ordinary bear. They were in the presence of intelligence, of choice, of guardianship. Ravi whispered to Anya, "Watch. It's teaching them, not fighting them. It's showing them boundaries without violence." Minutes passed like hours. One of the hunters took a cautious step forward, trying to intimidate, but the bear responded with a growl that resonated through the clearing, a warning that left no room for misinterpretation. The other hunter froze. Slowly they realized the futility of confrontation. The bear's strength, intelligence, and resolve were not to be tested lightly. Finally, the hunters retreated, stepping back into the shadows. The bear relaxed slightly but remained at the clearing's edge, scanning the forest for any lingering threat. Mira pressed her hands against the glass. It protected us again," she whispered. Anya hugged her daughter. "It's more than just a visitor. It's a teacher. And it's showing us that understanding and respect can prevent conflict without a single strike." Ravi nodded. Coexistence isn't passive. It's active observation, patience, and respect. That's the lesson this bear has taught us. The bear, having ensured the clearing was safe, accepted the small offering the family left nearby, a few fruits, bread, and scraps of meat, then retreated silently into the forest. The family watched until it disappeared, their hearts full of awe and gratitude. That night, as the cabin lights flickered softly, Mira asked, "Papa, do you think it knows how much we care?" Ravi smiled softly. "I think it does. Trust is built in quiet ways and it knows we respect it. That's why it continues to visit. When someone, or something, protects you without asking for anything in return, how do you honor that trust? Can empathy alone create harmony?" As the bear disappeared into the darkness, a faint, unfamiliar rustling came from deeper in the forest, a sound heavier, slower, and deliberate. The family's hearts skipped a beat. Whatever approached next might not respect boundaries, and the bear's loyalty would be tested in ways they could not yet imagine. The forest was heavy with frost, and the silence pressed against the cabin as if holding its breath. The bear had been vigilant all evening, muscles taut, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling at every subtle sound. From deep within the trees came a low, rhythmic crunch of snow under weighty footsteps. The forest seemed to vibrate with the presence of something immense. The bear's stance shifted immediately, coiling like a spring. Its eyes scanned the shadows. This was no wolf, no stray dog, no wandering bear. It was larger, heavier, and deliberate. The young bear, once lean and tentative, now stood tall and unwavering. Its loyalty to the family had forged courage stronger than injury or fatigue. Inside the cabin, Ravi whispered to Anya, "It's something massive, more than it has faced before." Mira pressed against the window, her small face pale but eyes wide with trust. "Papa, it's going to protect us, right?" Ravi nodded. "Yes. But it will also teach us something tonight." From the darkness emerged a fully grown male bear, older and scarred, with a massive frame and deliberate movements. Its eyes glimmered under the moonlight, calculating, dominant, and territorial. It paused at the clearing's edge, assessing the young bear. The standoff was tense, the weight of survival, experience, and instinct pressing on both animals. The two bears circled, growling low, communicating through posture, subtle shifts, and silent negotiation. It was not a fight of malice. It was a test of dominance, intelligence, and protection. The younger bear, despite its prior injuries and smaller size, held its ground. It positioned itself closer to the cabin, signaling not just defense of food, but defense of the humans it had come to understand as part of its world. Minutes felt like hours. Inside, the family watched silently, captivated by the raw intelligence and precision of the bear's actions. The bear lunged once, not with aggression but as a warning swipe, and the larger intruder paused. After several tense moments, the older bear backed down, slowly retreating into the shadows. The younger bear exhaled, muscles relaxing slightly. It approached the small offerings left near the cabin, eating carefully but keeping watch. For the family, it was a moment of awe and realization. This bear had grown beyond hunger or survival. It had become a protector, a teacher, and a symbol of the delicate balance between humans and wildlife. Mira pressed her small hand to the glass, eyes wide. It did it again. It protected us, it taught us too. Ravi nodded softly. It has shown us patience, courage, respect, and trust. Coexistence isn't about domination, it's about understanding boundaries and honoring them. That's the lesson of every visit, every choice this bear has made. The bear lingered at the edge of the clearing one last time, glancing toward the cabin, its eyes reflecting recognition and trust. Then, silently, it turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving the clearing peaceful but alive with lessons learned. The first light of dawn crept over the frost-kissed forest, casting a gentle glow across the clearing. The cabin's warm lights flickered off as Ravi, Anya, and Mira prepared for the day, their hearts still racing from the nights of tension and awe. The bear had not returned yet, but its presence lingered in every rustle of the trees, every faint scent in the air. Mira pressed her small hand to the window, searching for the familiar shape. "Do you think it'll come today?" she asked softly. Ravi smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It will when it wants to. It's not here for us to control. But it knows we respect it, and that's why it trusts us." Hours passed, and the family went about their routines, leaving small offerings at the edge of the clearing. Then, as if on cue, the bear appeared. Its movements were deliberate and calm, showing the grace and confidence of one who had survived challenges beyond imagination. It approached the food, sniffed the air, and for a long moment, locked eyes with the family inside the cabin. The moment was silent but profound. It was a glance of mutual recognition, a confirmation of trust, respect, and understanding that needed no words. The bear, once an outsider, had become an integral part of the family's lives, not as a pet, not as a curiosity, but as a teacher, guardian, and friend. The family stepped outside, careful not to startle it. Mira left a small bundle of apples near the clearing, and the bear gently sniffed them, acknowledging the gesture. Ravi whispered, "We've learned patience, courage, and empathy from this creature. True coexistence is understanding, not possession." The bear lingered, watching the family with eyes that seemed to understand the depth of human emotion, before retreating into the forest. Its visits would continue, unpredictable yet constant, a reminder that respect and trust formed the foundation of harmony between species. Days turned into weeks. The clearing remained a place of silent collaboration. The bear returned at dusk, moving with careful grace, while the family watched, leaving small offerings, observing and learning. Harmony had been restored, not through dominance or control, but through understanding, patience, and empathy. For the Patel family, the bear became a symbol of the lessons they would carry for a lifetime: the importance of observing quietly, respecting boundaries, and valuing trust above convenience. The forest was alive, unpredictable, yet filled with opportunities for connection when approached with care and humility. If a wild creature can teach empathy, courage, and patience without words, how would that change your view of nature and your role within it? As the bear disappeared once more into the forest, the family felt a profound connection to the untamed world around them. But the distant rustle of leaves hinted that the forest was never completely predictable. Lessons would continue, and the bond they shared with this remarkable creature was only the beginning. Harmony was achieved, but vigilance, empathy, and respect would always be the keys to living alongside the wild.